from the heart of trucker America, my boy Reed Coverdale, host of The Naturalist, Capitalist.
This is what government does. It sucks. It is that perfect mixture of inept and conniving.
Some of my closest relationships are now ruined.
If you think you're going to win people over by stating commonplaces, you're just selling the other parts.
If you are just contrarian, you are by default going to be wrong, because they're always going to have some tidbit of truth.
It is about dictating every transaction that you have for the rest of your life.
Libertarians need to get out of New York. They need to get out of California.
Insurrection at Capitol Hill.
That was the beginning of my problem.
Coverdale is the guy to be president of the United States.
No one's willing to change anything about themselves to get there.
Well, I'll put a 50 cal attached to my Suburban.
And he died doing what he loved, chasing a minor.
This guy's a fucking murderer.
The gulag is going to be in your house, completely estranged from everything but propaganda. Pearl Harbor was not a surprise, and Saddam did not have nuclear weapons.
Unless you solve the central problem, then we'll be fighting over Mr. Potato Head forever.
He should not be alive. This is unfucking believable.
Gotta get him out of that truck at night and get him into the White House.
What's up, guys? Hope you're all having a good Monday afternoon. When I was driving truck, I would try to do these once in a while when I was parked at the truck stop or something. I'd just pull my phone out after I was done eating for the night and do some of these Ask Me Anything sessions, and they were pretty good sometimes. People ask good questions, and I just want to kind of keep in touch with you guys. When I'm doing episodes, it's hard to always, answer all the questions, just because we've already got an agenda with the podcast, and usually it's limited time, so we don't really have time to go through all the questions and everything. But I'm here now, so if you got any questions, throw them in the live chat, and I'll pull them up on the screen and give you the best answer I can. So while I'm waiting for people to trickle in and waiting for people to come up with questions, I want you guys to know that I am on Substack, and I'm going to drop the link to Substack into the live chat. I just did. I'm going to pull it up on the screen here. That's the link right there. reedcoverdale.substack.com. And I put those out like 2 or 3 times a week. And I've been very successful with them, gotten lots of views on every single one I've put out. I've already got over 200 subscribers, which I think for this type of thing, without having Twitter or anything, I'm pretty impressed with that. I've only had it for 2 or 3 weeks. So I'd like to get to 1,000 within a month or so. That would be pretty cool. So make sure you go to Substack and subscribe to me on there. And I just put out articles, like I said, 2 or 3 times a week. And I've had a pretty interesting life the last couple months, so I've had a lot to write about. So check it out. The next thing is Telegram. So guys, I am literally not allowed on Twitter. Reed Coverdale is banned from Twitter. I had sort of evaded the ban for quite a while, like 9 or 10 months. I was going as myself with the real name and everything, and then they banned me for ban evasion. So I'm just like Ryan Dawson and Donald Trump and Steve Bannon, all those guys. I am not allowed on Twitter. So whether or not I come back, I won't be able to come back out in the open like I've been. It'll have to be under Coverdale or something. We'll have to figure it out. But for now, I'm trying to build up Telegram. It seems to be a pretty viable replacement for Twitter. It's, it's very similar. You can post video clips. You can post links to anything. There's open chat rooms. You have channels that you can just post stuff to. You can mute it if you don't want people commenting on your channel, or you can leave it open to comments. But I'm going to drop the link in the live chat to Telegram. So here it is right here. Please go subscribe to me on Telegram. And if you subscribe to me, you can also join the live chat I'm in. There's not too many people in the live chat yet. I think there's like 20 or something. But I've got like 150 people on the Telegram channel. But, Ryan is the other guy I know who uses it a lot, and he's got thousands of people. So does Adam Kokesh. He's got thousands of people. So people who have been using it for a while, they build up pretty good followings there, and you don't have to worry about getting banned. I'm sure you can get banned probably, but if Ryan is still there, that's a pretty good litmus test for free speech. So the other place, and this is a more mainstream location, but this is like my most mainstream social media platform now, other than like video streaming like YouTube, is Instagram. So if you have an Instagram account, I'm going to drop the link in the live chat to my Instagram account, and you can follow me there. I gotta pull that up on the screen here. So you can follow me there. I've got like, I think just a little over 1,500 followers right now. It's not as easy to post stuff there as it was on Twitter, because it's got to be with a picture, and then you can put a caption on the picture to get your point across. You can't just post text. There's times where I've written something on Facebook and then I'll screenshot it and then throw it up on Instagram, because then it's just it's the easiest way to do it and read it over there. But trying to build up a following there. I post clips out of every episode I do, so I try to find if you guys were following me on Twitter, you'd remember I'd like post clips of the episode and then post links underneath the clip to YouTube, Odyssey, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I can't do that on Instagram because you can't post links on Instagram posts. I'm not sure why, but they don't let you do that. So you got to go to my link tree, which is on my profile on Instagram, and you can find all my platforms there. In fact, I'm going to drop my link tree next, because all this stuff is on Linktree, but now that I'm talking about it, I'll just drop it in there. I'm Reed Coverdale on Linktree. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one, but I'm going to drop it in. And you can follow me on every single platform on my Linktree. So that's like Gab, Getter, Float, all the fucking fringe platforms that nobody uses. And then also my YouTube, Odyssey, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that crap. So that's the Linktree link. I just dropped it in the live chat. So make sure you click on that, and that'll bring you to all of my platforms, and you can subscribe to me if you want. No OnlyFans yet. Sorry. That, we'll see how desperate I get. You never know. I'm not going to count anything out. So I'm also new on Rumble, and I have not really done much there. I just joined it a couple days ago, but I'm going to drop that link into the live chat as well. So here's Rumble coming right here. So I've just uploaded a couple videos there. You can follow me there. I'm not really sure what I'm going to use that for, other than just post. I'm probably just going to post all my videos there as I go. I haven't gone and posted old ones there because I don't know if I really want to deal with that, but I guess I should just diversify my portfolio, so to speak. So I'll be uploading shit there. Another video platform I just joined, BitChute. So I'm going to drop that link in the description. Sorry, I keep saying description, in the live chat as well. So here's BitChute coming at you right now. Make sure you go check me out on BitChute. And BitChute's kind of gay. They only let you post up to 2 gigabyte videos. So anything that's over like an hour is too long. So I can't post them there. So I guess that's going to be a lot more limited. I think if I join a certain membership and contribute to the platform, they let me post more. So I don't know. I might do that eventually. But for now, I can't post a ton there. Okay, last detail I want to go over is I switched from Anchor to Podbean for uploading my episodes. So there was a little bit of a glitch when I did that, and I had uploaded a ton of M4A files to Anchor, and it had uploaded to Spotify just fine. There had been no issues or whatever. But then for some reason, when I switched over to Podbean, it didn't like that format for the sound files. So everything on Spotify disappeared. So I had to go back and edit every single file and change it to an MP3 file. And so I only went back as far as episode 200 on Spotify. So if you guys really want me to, I can go back and do more, but it only did that on Spotify. Every other platform was fine. It transferred on Apple Podcasts, everything else, it transferred everything. So I'm not sure why that glitch happened, but it happened and I resolved it. So you can go back as far as episode 200 on Spotify. Also, did want to point out, I noticed yesterday I uploaded the wrong file to the latest episode. So episode 238, which was with Jason Rink and Patriot J, I'd accidentally uploaded the same file as the Robbie Martin conversation. I have fixed that. So now if you go listen to it, it is the right episode. Sorry about that. But go back, listen to that episode. It's very good. If you didn't watch it on YouTube or Odyssey, go check it out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or what have you. So I'm going to drop a link to Podbean here. And if you have a Podbean account, if you could follow me on Podbean, that would be great. So I'm going to drop that in here now. And I think that's pretty much all the housekeeping stuff I wanted to go over. So just make sure you're following me on all those platforms. I'm just going to one more time drop the Linktree link into the live chat. And you can make sure you're following me on all the platforms I'm on. I'm basically on everything except Twitter because I can't be on Twitter anymore. So I just dropped the Linktree into the live chat. So go check me out there. All right. We had a question here, super chat. Let's see. From Brother Doom for $20 or $19.99. Going through democracy, the god that failed. Hoppa's privatized society sounds tempting, but I'm personally having issues coming to terms with the lack of free movement that would come from such a society. Thoughts? Yeah, so like, here, I'll leave the comment up so other people can read it if you're popping in, don't know what we're talking about. So I think a privatized society would, in a lot of ways, be more discriminatory than the society we have now, which was what was a little bit ironic about a lot of Hoppians during the lockdowns and stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, when the government is pushing something on company, that's a completely different scenario. That would not happen in a private society because the government wouldn't be able to mandate to businesses what they were allowed to do. But then toward the end of mandatory lockdowns, there were some businesses that wanted to keep their ridiculous practices of, testing people or whatever. And there was a big push from a lot of Hoppians to have the government illegalize that practice. And I don't think in a private property society that everyone would be doing what you want them to do. In a sort of ironic way, Disney is almost, there's definitely subsidies and stuff that fuck with the true privatization of this, but Disney is sort of close to like a private property society in a lot of ways. And a lot of like the private property maximalists, or that's what they'd call themselves, they were like all for removing Disney's special privileges or whatever, which is, I don't know, it's just kind of ironic. So I get where you're coming from, that freedom of movement could become restricted. I think economic enticement would keep things flowing more than we imagine. I think maybe there would initially be some blockading, but the desire to be able to trade, affects both sides of a problem. So if people want to be able to, have commerce with someone they really don't like, then the barriers of religion or societal differences or whatever kind of fall away so that you could trade with each other. So I don't think as far as like the lack of ability to travel goes, that would end up being a huge problem. I think you would just have a lot of companies doing stuff that, certain people wouldn't like, and that's fine. They don't have to shop there. They don't have to give them any business. And if you're in an area of the country where you're trying a practice that a lot of people in that area won't like, then you're probably not going to have a successful business. You're going to have to appeal to the market incentives of that area. So I don't think you would have a ton of obstinate business owners either. It's ironic seeing a lot of kind of right-wing libertarians advocate for the state taking over and pushing businesses in line with their way of thinking. I don't think you'd have to do that as much. I think a lot of that would evaporate based on market forces, and it might take a little bit longer, but I think it's going to be a more exact correction. I think when the state gets involved and starts trying to correct things, it doesn't go well. And there's lots of nuance to different situations, and the state just applies everything with a broad brush. So I don't think that's the best way to fix things. Let's see. We got Ofer. By the way, I've finally met Ofer. He's a fellow Free Stater. Met him up at Porkfest. Human beings like to travel and like to meet new people. A free society would find the optimal balance of openness and safety. Yeah, so he's basically saying in fewer words and more concisely what I was trying to say, that the incentives of people trying to do business with each other and trying to supply desired goods would create a society where people are traveling anyway. Hey Reed, what are your thoughts on Owen Benjamin? He would crush as a guest horseman. I'm ashamed to say this, I don't know a lot about him. I need to look into him more. I saw he was on Pete Quinones' show and somebody else's show too. I need to watch an episode with him, but I'm open to anything, so I need to get on that and find out more about him. Let's see. Ofer says Owen Benjamin on Four Horsemen or Tower Power Hour. Sounds good. I've heard the name a lot. I've just never actually sat down and watched anything he's done, so I need to get on that. Yeah, so if anyone's just jumping in, I'm just answering questions people have. If you have a question, just throw it in the live chat and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. He's been on at least one episode of Part of the Problem way back when. All right, I will check him out. I've heard the name a lot. Just like I said, have never actually sat down and watched. Bruce Gustafson says, don't waste your time on Owen, another plain denier. Eric Jackman says he's oxygen. So getting mixed messages here. I like the controversial guest idea if I've got mixed messages from my audience. By the way, I noticed for the first time in a while, I got a really mixed message on the Gay Groypers episode I just did, which I enjoy getting controversial mixed reactions from the crowd. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. It's Gay Groypers with Jason Rink and Patriot Day. So if any of you guys don't know that backstory, there's this guy, Jason Rink, who was going to premiere a film about Nick Fuentes at Freedom Fest. And so by the way, I've heard conflicting stories on it. This is just what I've heard. This is what he's told me. So if something else happened, I don't know. But this is what Jason told me happened. So he told me that he offered to Freedom Fest that he could ask Nick to attend for a Q&A, that he might be a little too controversial, so they'd really have to dig into him and think about it. And then Freedom Fest went ahead and just announced that Nick was going to be there without double checking, without clearing him. So then a bunch of people from Cato and Reason and the Libertarian Party got all angry and said, no, you can't have Nick come to this event. That would be horrible. And then they also ended up canceling the premiere of the movie about Fuentes that Jason was going to put on. So then he had to find a different medium to present his film. He actually got kicked out of the hotel and then another hotel nearby. And he had to find a few different locations before he found a place that he could premiere the film. So being myself with the curious attitude I have toward, anyone who's being banned from something for some reason, Patriot J was at Freedom Fest and he got invited to this event. So I tagged along with him and went and saw the film and met Nick Fuentes, took a picture with him and Patriot J, caused a bit of a stir on the internet. I even got condemned again yesterday by somebody else. So it's all been very interesting, but I did an episode about it and we talked about Nick Fuentes, and I honestly don't watch him. I don't watch Nick Fuentes. I've seen him debate Ryan Dawson and debate Dave Smith. And then I've seen out of context clips of him saying shit on his live streams. He could be the worst person in the world. He could be nothing. My opinion is it's more the latter. I've never really understood why he has such a fanatical following or such, committed haters. I just don't get it. I don't understand what the big deal is here. But from going to the event, I did not get white nationalist neo-Nazi vibes or whatever. It was it was more like going to a youth group or something. I described it as the gayest event I've ever been to, because it seemed to me to be a bunch of young men who were probably incels, who were very put off by promiscuous, degenerate behavior, and those types of people who like have such an aversion to that type of stuff. I have noticed a lot of the time it's because they're stuffing some of their own feelings that they have. So like Mike Pence, I think he's probably a little bit gay. You know, people who just have this extreme aversion to any of that type of shit, a lot of them are trying to hide something about themselves. So that's why I titled the episode Gay Groypers. You can go watch it, see what you think, but I got very mixed reactions. I am trying to get Nick on the show because I have some legit questions for him. First of all, I want to know what he actually believes about stuff, because I didn't get the vibe that he believes the things I've been told he believes. I would also go watch his episode he just did on Alex Stein's show on Conspiracy Castle. That was very eye-opening for me. So it's in the works. Jason is going to ask him if he'll come on my show. We'll see if we can make that happen, and I'll keep you guys updated on that. Let's see. It was an interesting one. I think he's talking about the Nick Fuentes episode. On the last AMA, you were saying you moved to your current state because of missing a high trust society, but aren't you worried they're trying to diversify Vermont, New Hampshire because it's too white? No, I'm not. I don't really care. So, I don't really care what color people's skin is. I care about, you know, what they value. And yeah, I mean, New Hampshire is, I think, 98% white or whatever, but I don't care what color anyone is, as long as they move here and they care about property rights, individual liberty, and the non-aggression principle. It's really all that matters to me. So not really worried about that. I think I remember you saying on a past episode that you were fascinated by World War II. Would be interesting for you to have Tom Woods or Scott Horton on to discuss FDR's actions that brought us into the war. I would love that. I should really get Tom Woods back on the show. I haven't had him on for like a year. I still got his emails, so I'm sure he'd come back on. I've run into him a couple times, saw him out in Reno, friendly meeting again. So I would love to I would love to get him back on, talk about that. But yeah, I mean, World War II is kind of the ultimate red pill. Once you because even when I started becoming a libertarian, it was like, we haven't fought a just war since World War II. That was my thought process. And then eventually you realize, like, wow, World War II was not a just war. We murdered millions of civilians. The reason it started was kind of all bullshit, very similar to what's going on in Ukraine right now, you know, sanctions on countries and punishing people and, you know, making people desperate, willing to turn to despots and tyrants. You know, I've made the point many times that Nazis don't just appear out of nowhere. You have to cultivate a society that pushes them in that direction. And in a lot of ways, we're living in a society that does that now. Like, you know, it doesn't excuse anything that the Nazis did, and it doesn't mean it's the victim's fault that the Nazis did what they did, but it's very similar to Al-Qaeda attacking us on 9/11. Like, it's not the victims on 9/11's fault that the airplanes hit the towers they were working in. And, you know, fuck Al-Qaeda, just like the Nazis. Fuck the Nazis. They all suck. But there's a reason things play out the way they do, and we should be trying to nip it in the bud instead of accelerate it and push it on. So I would love to have that discussion with either of those guys or both of them. I am planning on having Scott back on soon. Haven't had him on in a few months, and like I said, I would love to get Tom Woods back on. Let's see. Reed, what is your take on AB5 in Canada and the short and long-term consequences to the supply chain in the coming months and years because of it? So AB5, I knew what this was. Let me just look it up real quick. It sounds familiar. Is this the vaccination requirement? I'm just trying to, or is this, oh no, AB5. Is this the owner-operator bill? Yes, it is. It's the owner-operator. So I went on I went on Austin Peterson's show back in March or something. And the AB5 bill, to my understanding at the time when I read it, was they're trying to get rid of owner operators. So for those of you who don't know, an owner operator is someone who owns the truck but works for another company. So there's company driver, owner operator, and independent contractor. So if you're a company driver, that's what I was when I was living out in Utah. The boss owned the truck. The boss bought the fuel, paid for all the maintenance, all that shit. So it was literally his company, his truck. I just showed up and drove the truck. Then owner operator, you own the truck, but you work for a company. So depending on what your agreement is, you own the truck, you pay for fuel, but they organize all your loads, do all your dispatching, all that shit. And then sometimes there's like lease agreements on the truck and stuff like that. So it's kind of an in between. And then independent operator, you own your truck and you own your business. So, you would be booking your own loads. You'd be taking all the profit from a job. You're not a subcontractor or anything. You are just the guy running the show. So the AB5 bill tries to make it so it's illegal to work in California unless you're either an independent contractor or a company driver. And there are a lot of, there are a lot of owner operators out there. And with all the supply chain issues that we already have, making it even harder to work is just stupid. So it's a completely horrible bill. It's a dumb idea. So yeah, this is just stupid. I hope it gets overturned. Last I knew, they it was coming up for a vote again, and they hadn't voted on it yet. If that has been passed already, if someone would mention that in the comments. Let's see. Just a few shekels for the New Hampshire Chosenite Project. Wow, thanks, buddy. Yeah, it's the libertarian Zionism, the right of return to New Hampshire. If God can give the Jews a country in Israel, he can give the libertarians a country in New Hampshire. So we're just using the same concept. So if anyone tries to push us out, we'll just say God gave us this land, and that's all it is to it. I just know that Nick is pro cutting ties with Israel, so he at least gets a nod from me on that basis. Yeah, but see, this is what I want to push him on. From what I know of him, he is super anti-Zionist, but he is such a Trump shill, to a ridiculous level. And I know Ryan supported Trump, but it was a tepid endorsement. He made the documentary Trump's Zionist Ball and Chain. I know other people who voted for Trump over Biden, but it was kind of a lesser of two evils opinion. Nick Fuentes does not describe Trump as the lesser of two evils. He's sent from heaven to save us or whatever. So I don't know. I want to push Nick on that. If that is really one of your biggest issues, how can you love this guy so much? Let's see. What's the most beautiful state or area you've driven through that was the most underrated? Wow, most underrated. I really enjoy driving. What is it? Interstate 84, I think it is. I think it's 84 to Portland, Oregon. So you're right along the Columbia River, through the Columbia River Gorge, and it's really beautiful. When you're coming out of Idaho and going up into Oregon, you're just going over these mountain passes. It's very lush, very green. That was beautiful, and I'd never driven it before. I think I only drove it once or twice, but some of the best driving I've done. I was hauling an 11-axle load, so it was slow going, but it was great. Hello, would you have Mia Khalifa on your show? LOL, she spoke on war in Israel. I would love to have Mia Khalifa on my show. That would be another controversial guest that would piss a lot of people off. Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to have her on and talk about a couple things. Reed hasn't read Hoppe. That is true. I have not read Hoppe. So I don't talk about it too much because I haven't read any of his books. I should. I've read mostly Rothbard's books, but I honestly think libertarian theory is kind of boring to read after a while. Let's see. Tom's politically incorrect guide to American history was that red pill for me. This is all back on World War II, I think. Let's see. What was your first red pill moment? First red pill moment. Wow. I don't know about a moment, but the things I first started noticing were with the with OSHA and the regulatory state in the work industry that they weren't designed to protect you or make you safer. They were just there to make you comply. So they were all about complacency, not about efficiency or making the job site a safer place or a more fluid place or whatever. It's just stupid. It was all about making sure you're following a checklist. So that was, I don't know what the first moment was. Like, I remember a couple. There was this one time we were putting swamp mats in a swamp. So these swamp mats are made out of like 10 8x8s just bolted together, and they're like 16 feet long. And so you drop them sideways in a row out in the swamp so you could get your machines out to set the new poles and transfer the wires and shit. And I was running the mats to this job, and then I also went out with the forwarder, which is it's sort of like a skidder. It's a logging machine that has a big grapple hook that you reach down and grab stuff and throw it in the bed or whatever. And so I was laying these mats out, and I realized that what they were defining as a swamp was anywhere that had like a cat tail or something within 100 yards. It was just like, it had gotten ridiculous. So we were putting all these mats on solid ground for miles sometimes, where you really didn't need it. And it would just kill all the plant life within that 16-foot wide space, because they'd be sitting out there for, a few weeks or more. So everything underneath the mat would die, where you could have just driven straight in and straight out and just put the mats down where they keep you from literally sinking into the mush. And that would have made a lot more sense. That would have protected the environment more, but this was just stupid. So now you have more trucks running than you need. So you're burning more diesel. You got more machines out in the woods than you need. So you're causing more damage to, the environment, because you're driving more machines out there. And then on top of that, you're also, putting all these mats down on top of all this vegetation and killing it kind of needlessly. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess that was when I first started realizing that a lot of the stuff that they tell us to do doesn't actually make things any better. And then from OSHA, it went to the police. I had a few run-ins with the police as a truck driver. Stupid stuff that they were berating me over that didn't make the job any safer. Any of that shit. It was all about compliance. So that was kind of where it all started. Let's see. Yeah, man. Love the hat. Mine just came in the mail today. Woo! Yeah, I'm wearing the ANC report hat. Ryan gave it to me out in Texas back in June. Do you think Yale would welcome Nick Fuentes at their upcoming Revolution event? No, I don't think they would. Which is fine. They don't have to. I just think what was ironic about Freedom Fest is it, they actually wanted Jason to attend this like free speech roundtable afterward, and he was like, I can't, after you wouldn't even let me air this film or whatever. So lots of these organizations don't really believe in free speech, though. Let's see. How's Jackman's Ron Paul episode? I'm busy with my job, so yeah. Hey guys, I'm going to grab a link to that because it was very good. Jackman Radio just had Ron Paul on earlier this morning. I'm going to find that here. Just give me a second, and I'll drop a link in the live chat. It was very good. I had the same takeaway when I had him on my show. He's just so happy and optimistic and uplifting and kind. And it's funny. It's interesting because he knows all the same stuff that like Scott Horton does, and that Ryan does, like a lot of this like deep, dark warfare state stuff. And he's just somehow able to stay so positive throughout all of it. So here's the link to their live stream with Ron Paul. I'm going to show it right here. So just make sure you click on that. I just dropped it in the live chat. Go check it out. It was a great show. We all love Ron Paul. Let's see. We got Kyle Matovic. Trump 2020. He's really going to drain the swamp, Reed. What say you? Well, I don't have a time machine, so I can't go back and elect him. I'm super glad that Biden is president right now, and not because he's better than Trump, because he's worse than Trump. But I just put out a Substack called Ron DeSantis, the Rights Obama. So I think that Obama, in a very large way, he sedated the anti-war movement on the left, because you didn't have an overt neocon like John McCain. Now you had Obama, who had been against the war in Iraq and was talking in a sort of humble foreign policy way when he was running for president. So it just put a ton of people to sleep. You had a similar deal with Trump and the anti-establishment right-wingers. A lot of them kind of went to sleep and acted like Trump was taking on the deep state, locking up all the pedophiles, pulling us out of all the wars. And it was just very removed from the truth of what was going on. So that option doesn't exist under Biden. And even if you're an actual anti-war, or even if you're an actual just progressive, forget anti-war progressive, but if you're an actual progressive, there's no way with a clear conscience you can actually act like Biden is a good guy. So Biden is kind of the perfect guy to be president, because he's so transparently corrupt, and it's so obvious he has no idea what he's doing. And it's just, the emperor has no clothes. So I'd rather that than get someone like DeSantis back in there, or Trump, who, will kind of sedate people who are anti-government, because they're going to just feel like everything's howdy-do and fine. Case in point, like the Republicans have become much more fiscally responsible under Biden. Under Trump, there were like 4 dissenters on the Republican side. You had like Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, and that's about it. And then you had Justin Amash, obviously, but he was a libertarian at the time. But like whenever Trump wanted a spending bill to pass, pretty much all the Republicans would vote for it. Now, bills that are like half, a third, or even a quarter the size of the ones that passed under Trump, if Biden wants it passed, the Republicans are saying like, oh, this is so irresponsible. What about our grandchildren and their children? And what about the dead? And what about inflation? What about all this shit that they didn't give a fuck about in 2020? So I'd rather keep Biden in there, because he keeps the Republicans more conservative. Like once the Republicans control the presidency and the House or Senate, they're just junk. They're awful. So if they're the dissenters, or at least if there's opposition to them in some way, they're much more effective. So I don't really want Trump or DeSantis or anyone like that. I want either like a really good Republican like Rand Paul, or I want someone who's just fucking awful like Biden. And I realize that's controversial, but that's how I feel. What was your introduction to Ryan Dawson? So in 2016, I was a Rand Paul supporter, and then Rand just didn't make it anywhere. He just got flattened by Trump and everybody. It was super sad, because at the beginning he was even favored to win the nomination for a little while, and then it just became so obvious that wasn't going to happen. So after the Iowa caucus, he dropped out, so I didn't even get to vote for him while he was still in. And Trump was just a bridge too far for me. I feel like there's a little bit of revisionist history when it comes to saying Trump was an anti-war candidate, because he really wasn't. Like, I mean, he was always talking about how we need to ramp up war against ISIS. We need to bomb the shit out of them. We need to kill the terrorist families. The problem with going into Iraq was that we didn't take the oil, which, I mean, at least he's being honest about those types of things. Like when he said the thing about Syria, we're leaving troops in Syria to protect the oil. Tons of people got mad at him. At least he's like being honest about why we're there. And I guess, so he never pretended it was about protecting democracy or human rights around the world or whatever, which is better, I guess. But he just wasn't anti-war, and he had a lot of authoritarian tendencies. It's actually kind of ironic. He was talking about banning certain sites off the internet and banning certain individuals before it was like really in full effect. And now that's been weaponized against the right. So it's just kind of ironic, but I just like didn't really see eye to eye to him on enough. So, excuse me. So I actually like temporarily thought, okay, I'm going to check out Bernie Sanders because I definitely disagree with him on economics, but sounds like he's kind of anti-war and anti-establishment and anti-corporate. So I'll check him out. And so during that process, I came across one of Ryan's videos called Bernie Sanders to the Woodshed. I think you can still find it on Alt Censored. And he just obliterated Bernie, just showed that he wasn't anti-war, that he wasn't anti-corporate, that he just sucked. So that was the first video of Ryan's that I remember watching. And then, I watched him off and on. And then in 2019, he supported Tulsi Gabbard like I did. So I was watching him more. And then in 2020, I watched him a lot, got in contact with him in October of 2020 through the Jackmans, and then had him on my show right after he got banned off of YouTube in 2021. And then a few months later, we started doing the Four Horsemen, and the rest is history. So that's how that happened. Should I move to New Hampshire or Montana? New Hampshire, man, of course. I love Montana, though. Montana is a great second choice. Reed, is it really unfathomable that people are grossed out by libertine lifestyle? No, it's not. I've never suggested that it is either. I'm grossed out by a lot of it, frankly. Let's see. First time I met Ron Paul was in Dixville Notch in late 2007. Yeah, Dixville Notch, which I believe is the first town to close the polls in New Hampshire. I mean, as if I remember correctly, they always have their voting results out earlier than the rest of New Hampshire. So it's this tiny little fucking town, too, up in the North Country. Thanks for the plug. Absolutely, Mike. You and Eric deserve that interview more than most people I know. Let's see. The owner of the company I work for has always joked, if OSHA walks onto the job site, shut down your machines and go take a break. Yeah, I mean, I've had OSHA show up on the job site when I was working on power lines, and same thing. It's just like no one wants to do anything because, frankly, if they want to find a violation, they will. They'll make something up, or I mean, you just can't be too safe. So you just have to hope that the OSHA dude, whoever he is he's not a stickler, that he doesn't really care, he's having a good day or whatever. Trump is better than DeSantis. I would agree with this, and so I'm going to explain why. I think Trump only cares about himself, so that has some negative aspects, but it also has some positive aspects. So, like, I don't think he really gives a fuck about Israel at all, or Saudi Arabia, or Iran. I don't think he really fucking cares. So I think he was talked into doing a lot of dumb shit, but at the end of the day, I think he just cares about himself and that people say he's awesome and worship him and everything. So I think his self-serving tendencies can be weaponized into better results than DeSantis. DeSantis, I do believe, is a legit neocon. I just did a Substack about him the other day, and I posted a link, to his voting history in Congress. If you go check it out, it's absolutely awful. And he introduced a bill to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. So, like, he is a legit dyed-in-the-wool Zionist neocon. He wants regime change in a bunch of South American countries. He hates, he's super hawkish on Cuba, super hawkish on China. The only foreign intervention I think he was okay on was Syria. He was kind of cautious about giving Al-Qaeda weapons, which is good. But, when you compare it with the rest of his foreign policy, is awful. So, yeah, I would agree with that. I would take Trump over DeSantis. Policy-wise, if you like Bill Clinton, then you'll love Ron DeSantis. Yeah, pretty much. Let's see. This is the correct take, by the way. Too many libertarians are asleep at the wheel. I'm assuming I was talking about Biden back then. Sorry, I'll try to catch up here, guys. Let's see. The culture war is in everyone's faces. There's no more going to sleep on either side. Yeah, probably not. In some ways, that might be a good thing. But I think, ultimately, it shows us that politics shouldn't be in charge of culture, because we have a lot of cultural differences. Like, I'm an atheist, and there are tons of Christians who watch my show. I got tons of Christian friends, and it just doesn't fucking matter. Like, I mean, we might get into debates about it sometime in good spirits or whatever, but it's not like foisted over us. And, there's no political power related to whether you believe or don't believe or whatever. So it's not a big deal. So a lot of this shit that has become so important lately is because it's enforced through politics. So I think if we get rid of that, then we'll be doing better. Let's see. Massey Smith 2024. Hey, I'd vote for that ticket in a heartbeat. Adam Fitzgerald, thanks for tuning in, man. Let's see. Since the start of your channel, what can you say has fundamentally changed about you the most to the present day, and which influencers have made you intellectually challenge those beliefs? Wow, that's a great question. So, excuse me. So I started the channel in fall of 2019. So by the way, when you see my naturalist capitalist logo and it says established 2019, that might throw some people off. First of all, I didn't make that. Some fan made it for me, and maybe I should have had him change it to 2020, because I technically didn't start the show until 2020, like May 2020, but I started the channel in, I think, October or something of 2019, and I think that's why he made the logo the way he did, and I've just run with it, so whatever. But I have become much more of an anarchist than a minarchist. So to put that in layman's terms, I'd say in 2019, I was much more of the thought, like, we just need to elect better people. We need to drain the swamp, actually, not like Trump was, but like actually drain it and put good people in there. And we need to start auditing all our programs and everything. And after 2020, with COVID and all the bailouts and everything, I was just like, fuck it. Like, you can't, like, I mean, this is what's designed to happen. The system is designed to grow, and it's not designed to be contained. It's never going to get smaller. It's never going to contain itself. So I've become an abolitionist, and, I think there's certain parts of the government we might never be able to get rid of, but like, I absolutely think we should abolish the Department of Education. I think maybe in fall of 2019, I was a little bit more on the fence about that, like more like we need to audit it, and, we need to stop having all these testing regulations and shit. But I've become much more of an abolitionist. And I don't know, Spike Cohen, I would say, had a big impact on me in that area, just from listening to him. Carrie Wedler is another one who I'd been listening to for a while. A few different people. The other thing is I started to realize that there's, and you'll appreciate this, Adam, there's an official narrative that the government and the media gives you, and then there's like an intentional counter narrative to that, and they're usually both bullshit. So with the vaccines, like, it was, get vaccinated and you won't get sick and you'll stop the spread. Bullshit, right? But then there's also like, this is a fake virus, it doesn't exist, and it can't hurt you. Also bullshit. Like, they could fuck you up if you were certain, if you were overweight, if you were diabetic, if you were an old person, whatever. And the virus definitely existed, but also what they were telling you about vaccines and shit was complete bullshit too. So the truth is usually a bit complicated, somewhere in the middle. And I would credit Ryan mostly to that. And then also you, Adam, listening to you on a lot of stuff has made me realize that that's how most things work. They intentionally misguide you. They get you to take this black or white trail, and, both of them are bullshit. So the truth is a bit harder to find. Let's see. Marjorie Taylor Greene for president. So, no, but I do like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I know this is controversial, but I think she is a net positive in Congress. So she's out to lunch on China. She's out to lunch on Israel. I think she's out to lunch on like immigration and a lot of other things. But I think the most important things she talks about are, why are we getting into this proxy war with Ukraine? January 6th is not the new 9/11. And, she's been pretty good on the war in Yemen. She's wanted to end the war in Yemen, or our involvement with it, at least. She's, and she rattles the cage in a lot of important areas. I mean, I completely disagree with her on some stuff, but I think overall she's a net positive to have in Congress because of the things that she brings up. Let's see. Is there a recording of Spike and Marjorie from Freedom Fest you talked about? I don't know. Clint was moderating that talk, so if you can message Clint, he might know. I want the candidates in 2024 to be whichever two candidates Dave Smith most wants to run against. I assume his judgment is better than mine. Yeah, I would say Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, maybe, or maybe not Donald Trump. Like if maybe like Ted Cruz, if he could somehow win or Liz Cheney. I don't know. Maybe if the Republican Party adopts the strategy of the Democrat Party and like really rigs the fuck out of their primaries and gets some establishment ghoul in there, that would be interesting. And I think that would be the easiest for Dave to run against. So yeah, I'm of the same thought. Well, this is what I would like to see. I want to see Trump against DeSantis in a Republican primary, mainly for the blood sport. It would just be entertaining as fuck to watch. But I think at the end of that primary, there'd be unhealable divides, like because they're just going to eviscerate each other. So I'd like to see them just rip each other apart, and then like Buttigieg and Harris on the Democrat side or something, just something awful like that. That would be pretty cool. Let's see. I thought your interview with Robbie Martin was really good. He's a fascinating fellow. Yeah, absolutely, guys. Go check that out. Very, very smart guy. And we talked a lot about this stuff that I've been saying about DeSantis and Trump in this live stream. So go check it out. He has a lot more insight to it than I do. Reed, what's your take on some of the Southern stuff Rye talks about on the Horsemen? Southern stuff, meaning Civil War, Southern. So I can't do the South. I just can't. Like, not really culturally. Some of it, like I'm not into fried food and stuff like that. But the South is just, it's too hot. It's too flat. And I really like North Carolina, though, where Ryan is from, the Outer Banks. I actually love that area. I could live there. Ocracoke Island, I've been there 5 or 6 times. I really want to go down there and visit Ryan's brother and Ryan, if he's there at the same time too. That's just a beautiful area, the coastline of North Carolina. Aside from that, I couldn't really live anywhere in the South. So I don't know near the amount about the Civil War that Ryan does. So I would never go toe to toe to him with in a debate about it. And I agree with him on a lot of what he says. I don't think the war was about slavery. I think it was obviously about keeping the Union together. And if you read Abraham Lincoln's speeches, that's very obvious. It's all about keeping this nation that 20 years ago we brought forth upon this continent or whatever. Like, it's very obvious that's what the war is about. I think Ryan might be a little biased and he might be a little black and white on the Civil War, which is all right. I don't really care. But like, I would, in my opinion, I wouldn't want to fight for the South either. Like, I think there were political motivations behind the South, not just defending themselves from the North, but I think there were political interests there too. And, only like 2% of people in the South were slave owners. Like, most of them weren't. So a lot of it wasn't even necessarily their fight. A lot of it was for plantation owners and, all these different things going on. So I don't know. I think with any war, especially the size of the Civil War, when you're fighting for a government or for the government that's rising up, it's probably not all nearly that black and white. And yes, I think the same thing about the Revolutionary War. Like, I don't honestly know if I would have been sold on overthrowing the British government back in the day. Like, comparative to now, the British government was actually way more reasonable. They just fought the French and Indian War mostly to protect the colonies in North America. That makes a lot more sense than fighting the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the Vietnam War, whatever other wars that we're forced to subsidize now. And I don't really endorse right now trying to fight a war against the federal government. I don't think we'd come out on top. I think there are more effective ways to do it. So It's hard knowing. I was not alive in the 1860s, so if I were, I might think completely different about it. But yeah, I agree with a ton of what he says, and like I said, I'm not nearly as well informed as he is, so I would never challenge him to a debate on any of it because he would kick my ass. Let's see. Just because Putin is right on some things, it doesn't mean he is the good guy nor savior. I don't think I've ever said he is a good guy. I've said, like, if you're going to look at it very simplistically from a worldwide geopolitical standpoint, it's understandable why Russia is doing what it's doing. And if you're going to dumb it way down, like who's the good guy, who's the aggressor, I would say NATO is the aggressor, and Putin is reacting to NATO and also reacting to Ukraine bombing the shit out of the Donbass, all that shit. So I don't think that anyone is saying Putin is a good guy. I think it's just like with, with Al-Qaeda. We weren't saying Al-Qaeda are good guys. It was just understandable why Al-Qaeda did what it did. It doesn't excuse the actions. I don't think what Putin is doing in Ukraine is right. I think a lot of innocent Ukrainian civilians are going to die. And I'm not one who thinks that soldiers are somehow fair game either. Like, I think soldiers being conscripted into battle and killing each other is still murder. So all of it sucks. So I don't think, and I mean, there's some like shit posty reactionary humor to kind of standing Putin just in reaction to all the Ukrainian flags and the worship of Zelensky or whatever. But I don't think anyone unironically loathes Putin. Like, I think he's more like what he's doing is more in line with protecting his country than anything we've done in a long time. But yeah, I don't like Putin. I would, he been locked up thousands of anti-war protesters right after the invasion started. So it's not like it's a country that protects free speech or that Putin isn't a ruthless, calculating villain. I'm sure he is. It's just explaining things from a dumbed down geopolitical perspective. Battle of Blair Mountain is the best thing I've heard from Rye. Do libertarians have an attitude problem because we want to have the right to be jerks means we have some responsibility to not be? Thoughts? Yeah, I think a lot of libertarians, like any movement, you have individuals who are problematic, but I don't know. I think one of the biggest issues I take with libertarians is how hateful they are toward people who take advantage of the system. So if there's an immigrant who's coming here because they can have children and then their children could be US citizens, I don't think it's right to be upset at the immigrants for doing that. They, anyone would do that in their situation. And I think they should do that if they can. The problem is the government giving that free money out, that free opportunity, like, because if you become a citizen, then you get all these benefits. I don't think it should be that way. Same with like a corporation. When a corporation takes a bailout, I don't blame the corporation for doing that. And if I were CEO, I would absolutely take a bailout too. And this is a mindset change I've gone through in the last couple of years. Like in the beginning of 2020, when that first stimulus check came out, I was like, fuck, I don't want any of this money. Like, just don't give me any, fuck it. But then, after 2020 was over, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take any stimulus check I get and just buy gold with it because fuck it. Like, who cares? The government has completely destroyed the currency, and you can't blame the people for taking anything. You got to blame the government for giving it out. Let's see. Hey, brother, huge fan at work. Thoughts on Owen Benjamin? Be cool to have him on, talk moon landing and globe Earth. I know it's far out there, but definitely worth a listen. So someone else actually already asked this question toward the beginning. I honestly have not looked into Owen Benjamin enough. So I'm open to it, though. I don't care. I'll talk to anybody. There will be no Trump versus DeSantis. Trump would be the guy if he wants to run. If the Republicans want to fight him, he will screw them by running as an independent. That's very possibly true, but I still want to see it regardless. The political interest in the South was to conserve the states' rights, original intent of the Union, and to keep tariffs at a level that would burden both and both North and South more equally. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure that was a widespread goal, but I'm saying, like, once you're fighting for large armies in a war, I think the perfection of the cause kind of fades away. So if you were in Luxembourg defending yourself from the Nazis invading, I think, or from the Germans invading, I think that, yeah, there's a very black and white political cause to be made there. But once you actually have a government putting troops up against another government, I think things get more heinous, and it's not in black and white as we want to think it is. And I mean, like World War II, when we were talking about in the beginning, like, it's a lot more complicated. It's not super black and white. And, there's evil people in every institution, regardless of which side they're on. So, like, if you were a deserter from the Confederacy during the Civil War because you wanted to go back and protect your family and your farm or whatever, if the Confederacy caught you, they would shoot you as a traitor. And I don't think that's right. It's not like irregular. I mean, that's what every army would do. But all my point is that even though I think you can make some arguments that the Confederacy was more justified, especially from like a states' rights perspective, I just totally support secession, all that type of stuff. Once there's a war going on, you have people who are corrupt on both sides in both institutions, and both sides are going to murder people. Both the North and the South murdered a lot of people in that war. So that's all I'm saying. And we got another comment. Fuck NATO, deep state, Zelensky and Putin. They're both corrupt kleptocrats. Ukraine is Putin's Iraq. War quagmire. Yeah, like I said, I don't support the war in Ukraine from either side. I just understand why it's taking place. And it's like I said earlier about World War II. Like, I don't support Tojo or Hitler or any of those guys. I don't think that they were justified in, what they did. It's understandable how we got to that situation. If you look at the Treaty of Versailles, you look at the rampant inflation in the Weimar Republic, you see why people turn to despots and authoritarians. That's all I'm saying. So with the war in Ukraine, it's understandable why things have gotten to the point they've gotten to. And on a strictly dumbed down black and white geopolitical scale, it makes more sense what Putin's doing than what we're doing. That's all I'm saying. Basically, that's, talk about the Civil War, same way, like from a dumbed down black and white geopolitical perspective. Yeah, I think the South was in the right. They had the right to secede, and they should have autonomy over themselves. And the war was about keeping the Union together. But just like, Putin with what he's doing to Ukraine, a lot of innocent people are dying in Ukraine. A lot of innocent Ukrainians are dying. It's not just innocent Russians who have died. So once it becomes a war involving hundreds of thousands of people, lots of innocent people die. So I'm not the type to fly a flag for either side. When it's something like, Palestine or Yemen, especially Palestine, it's much more of a statement of the people of Palestine being, crushed by Israel. It's not like these two giant armies going into a battlefield together. And the same in Yemen. Like, I know the Houthis have a fighting force, but it's like this huge, it's more similar to the United States, like murdering all the Indians back in the, 18th and 19th century. So I don't care about flags, and they don't like piss me off if someone flies the Russian flag or the Confederate flag or whatever. It doesn't, like, I don't get triggered over it or anything, but that's why I don't do that type of stuff, because I feel like when it's a war, a big full-on scale war like that, like, there's not really there really isn't like a good side and a bad side. There are sides that you can understand why they're doing what they're doing and how it got to that point and how we should have avoided it. But lots of innocent people are going to get killed. Where with Yemen and Palestine, it's a much more lopsided situation. It's more of a genocide than a war. So I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but that's kind of where I come from. Let's see. Would you like to host on Naturalist Capitalist? Whom would you like to host on Naturalist Capitalist who you haven't interviewed already? So yeah, Tulsi Gabbard, she's already said she would come on. I'm actually going to see her down in Florida, Young Americans for Liberty. So hopefully that happens at some point. I'd love to get Marjorie Taylor Greene on the show. I'd love to get Mike Rowe on the show. That'd be awesome. He's probably, excuse me, he's probably my dream guest. Because we have so much in common, talking about working, the skills gap, why you shouldn't go to college if you don't have to, staying out of debt, all this stuff. It's just right up my alley. I'd love to have him on. Nick Fuentes, like I said earlier, I think that would be interesting. Sure, Mia Khalifa, someone mentioned that. I'd do that. Fuck it, why not? Actually, Candace Owens is someone I'd really like to have on, who's been really, really surprisingly based, especially on the war in Ukraine, but also, on Julian Assange and Edward Snowden and a lot of this stuff. And she used to just be a TPUSA talking head. So I've been really impressed seeing her evolution. I'd love to get her on the show too. Lots of people I'd like to have on. Let's see. For a long time, I was of the thought that the Civil War was not about slavery, but then a few months ago, Michael Malice showed some historical writings that it was for some of the higher ups, at least. Well, like I said, it's a giant war. It's not like there's this black and white cause. This is my whole point. Like, some people, like the war in Ukraine that's happening right now, a large part of it is because of NATO expansion and, Ukraine shelling the Donbass. But I'm sure other people have ulterior motives. The Russian government is a giant institution, and so is the Ukrainian government. So there's all sorts of different motives taking place here. I don't think war is black and white. I think war is just awful. And that's the point I was making earlier. There are no good guys in a war. It's a catastrophe and a destroyer of civilizations. I completely agree. As a fellow North Carolinian, I'd be down to start a free autonomous zone with Ryan out on the coast. Great, man. You should start the second Free State project. Started on Ocracoke Island because, you guys have a ferry that you have to take to get there, so maybe it's not the greatest idea. And especially on the north side, you guys got that fucking crazy ferry that it has to go like this. It takes like an hour to just cross this tiny piece of a channel because it has to snake through all this shallow water. But you could start with Ocracoke Island, turn it into a libertarian utopia. I think that's a great idea. Oh yeah, Massey. I would love to have Massey on the show. I have actually invited him through Twitter DM, but I think I've got to have a more official connection to get him on. But I'd love to. He followed me on Twitter both times when I had an account. I'm friends with him on Facebook. I've interacted with him before, so I'd love to get him on. He is the best Republican, no doubt. He's the best guy in Congress, just no competition. Do you think we as libertarians or ANCAPs can bring over the gun tubers in their community? It seems that many of them are sick of Republicans in the NRA. Absolutely. I totally think that. I think we have. I think Gun Owners of America and National Association for Gun Rights are two great pro-gun organizations. They're not just about getting Republicans elected or negotiating your rights away, which is what NRA stands for. Is Russia committing genocide in Ukraine? I would not say they are. I think this is more of a conventional war, and most of the news coming out about mass graves of civilians, it seems to be fake, like the mass graves in Mariupol. So I would not classify it as a genocide. Reed, would you be comfortable if I attempted to broker an interview or meeting with you and Aaron Mate? I think it would be valuable to connect your media nexus with theirs. Left and right fringes unite. I would absolutely love that. I'm a big fan of Aaron Mate. I think I actually tried to reach out to him through somebody else once. I couldn't get the connection. So if you have that connection, more than happy to do that. I would love that. In fact, that'd be great. All right, guys, let's see. I've been going for over an hour now, so I'm going to cut it there. Just wanted to do some housekeeping and keep up with you guys because I don't have time during the streams. If you guys want me to go down a certain venue more than I have been, I'm always open to suggestions. Tell me what you like. If you like the conspiracy stuff, if you like the economic stuff, if you like the foreign policy stuff, like whatever you like, I'll try to do more of that. I think I am getting a little shadow banned on YouTube because, in my opinion, the episodes are way better than they were a year and a half ago, but the viewership has gone down. If I'm wrong about that and you actually think the quality's decreased over time, let me know why that is or whatever, but I tend to think that's not really the case. It's going up on my audio podcast. It's just going down on YouTube. So I need your help though. Now that I don't have Twitter, I need you guys to share that stuff around. Always comment, like, share. It just helps me with the algorithms, helps me get more spread out. If you really like an episode, just post it on Facebook, post it on Twitter, post it on whatever, share it on your YouTube, social, your whatever, your community page. Like, just share it around. Help me boost the signal. I appreciate it at all times. I will be going on Dave Casey's show in 2 hours from now? Yeah, 2 hours. So here, let me actually drop a link to it. I'll find it, but I'm going to be on his show for the first time. I met him out in Reno, which was cool. Let's see if I can find him here. Give me 1 second. Gotta find the link through Facebook. But yeah, I'll be on his show. I think we're going to be talking about January 6th and some other shit, but we'll also be talking about Tulsi Gabbard and a lot of stuff that we have in common. I think he was a Tulsi supporter from back in the day. I've looked through his Instagram from way back, so it's going to be interesting. Let me see. Pulling the link up here. Here we go. YouTube. All right, so here's the link. I'm going to drop it in the live chat. Go check it out. Here's the link. I'll pull it up on the screen. There's the link right there. Make sure you click on that. Go subscribe to Dave. He's great. And he's a fellow Libertarian Mises Caucus guy. So yeah, go check it out. Like I said, if you guys have any questions or suggestions or any direction you want me to go in or whatever, like just leave it in an actual comment on the video. I'll read through them, not in the live chat, but once the stream is over, go to the video and just drop a comment in which direction you'd like me to go, and I'll read through them and consider it. So thanks, guys. Check into Dave Casey's video this evening, and I'll see you in a couple hours.